All right, y'all. Welcome to another Monday morning productivity group call. I'd love to see some new faces on here, and here's why they should be on here, right? It's because we are going to establish like top producers through this weekly call. And I think it's going to take it's like grassroots. So they need to be able to see it through our social media before they will join, right? So the whole idea behind like real estate is to garner the attention of others. So to make yourself visible, to see and be seen, to be a conversation starter, to be a problem solver, but to do it in a very, very public way, right? So that people can identify that you are the person in the market that deserves the consideration for guiding them through what will be most likely the largest transaction of their life. So the first part of this, I think, is a mindset thing, is understanding that these real estate contracts just aren't a piece of paper. This just isn't some, purchase. It's a really, really big deal. There are livelihoods associated with it. Obviously, I mean, you can be as hokey as the American dream, but people's self-worth, their actual net worth. I mean, there's so many things. Shelter's a primal need. All these things are really, really important. So I think first step might be to check your mindset. So check your thought process, check how you are perceiving yourself. And really, this is a struggle too, because a lot of people, no matter what industry in, they lack that self-awareness to go, hey, how am I doing? Am I visible in the marketplace? All right. So there's a lot of ways to establish this. I think it needs to be a combination of ways. But if you're not dominating, let's say, the social media space, then you need to be out and about in the community talking to people. Like you'd want to be, as much as I'm not a fan of like BNI, for some agents it works. It's never really worked for me, but that's the kind of thing we need to be out and doing. So you would be doing, a BNI meeting at the very least gives you, some public speaking opportunities and allows you to kind of hone that skill. But what other network groups are you going to? So if you're not, I think, being found consistently in somebody's newsfeed, then you're in front of them all the time at Chamber of Commerce meetings. You got the Meetup app rolling. The other thing might be you just have so many damn signs in the ground that people notice you. Now, that's a great segue into kind of I think a primary focus here is that if you were in somebody's social media newsfeed and you're talking about a wide array of topics all the time, and people cannot tell what it is that you do, what it is that you specialize in, what market are you in? Like if you're in a different market every week, advertising a property, or you're in a different market every week doing an open house, as we've talked many, many times, open houses, great networking events, then you're not going to bump into the same people. The same people aren't going to bump into you or to your signs. They're not going to see your directionals in the ground. They're not going to see your signs predominantly in one concentrated area. So, couple things here that are super, super important. Your message, everything just needs to be concentrated. Okay. Your messaging needs to be concentrated. All right. Your geographical farm area needs to be concentrated. Stop me if you don't know what any of this stuff means. But you need to be focused on one market segment, one market area. I mean, if you look at and study the top real estate agents across the country, from New York to California to Hawaii to Puerto Rico to wherever, you're going to see people that focus on one thing. Okay. We've got $1 billion agent who sold well over $1 billion in real estate right in the market where I'm sitting right now. There's also Ryan Serhant in New York City. So Ryan's known for selling luxury properties in New York City. That's his bread and butter. Okay. And he started that, and you'll hear this a lot, like start small in real estate before you get big. So now Ryan's like selling luxury properties all over, and he's become like a luxury specialist. No matter what big city you're in, he's going to have a brick and mortar and some team members there to service those people. So we talked about specialization a lot on our training calls, but we've also talked about it a lot since we started doing these productivity calls in 2025. So one thing we've got to really be cautious about is to not talk about what's working, what's not working, like having new conversations around those things every single week. Okay. We need to stop, pump the brakes, and really like a hard stop and evaluate what are we doing collectively that matters, that really moves the needle. Okay. And so one of those things is to have a very defined focus, a very small, very laser focus on one particular segment of the market. And all of your content doesn't have to be related to this market segment, this specialization, but it's the bulk of it, right? It's the bulk of your content. So we all need to decide what it is, where it is that we want to specialize. We can also, if we have, let's say, we've been on this call for a while and we know what that market is. We know what that specialization is. We just haven't been able to break through it. Then we need to talk about either picking a new specialization or trying something new, a new tactic, a new method in that kind of target marketplace. All right. So just to kind of recap on what some of those things are, you can be a new first-time homebuyer specialist. God help you. I mean, you need to be really, really patient. I'm thinking having the patience and the heart of a school teacher would be really, really beneficial to that specialization. You can be a condo specialist, a new construction specialist, a luxury specialist, a lake home specialist, specialize in condos and lofts. There's all these things. Now, one of the things I think is really, really important is to pick something that you love to do, that's familiar to you in some ways, maybe fun, enjoyable. I can tell you just from my personal experience, focusing on lake homes, it doesn't feel like work. At some point, I'm going to be showing homes by boat. And I'm just telling you, like a lot of times, if I've got to drive from one side of the lake to the other, the distance, the driving distance between properties might be an hour. And you might go, God, that's not for me. It is for me. Okay. I enjoy it. So what do you enjoy? Like if your dad was a builder, maybe you just grew up with the smell of sawdust around you all the time and you just love it. You love the smell of new construction. Maybe you're an avid golfer and you want to focus on golf course properties because you love golf and you love playing golf. So we have kicked this can down the MFing road for so long, but so few have actually stopped to actually give it some thought as to what they want to specialize in. Okay. Now, you could be an internet lead conversion specialist, but you need to be or have strategies for generating organic leads and paid leads through the internet. You can certainly be a Zillow specialist or a realtor.com specialist. I've tested Zillow out, lost a shit ton of money on it so far, and it's just not for me. The way they do business, the way they try to connect buyers with agents is not for me. I'm much rather the way that realtor.com does it. So we could talk more about that. But what we need to do is decide. The needle won't start moving and you won't start getting attention from the people you want to start getting attention from, i.e., buyers, sellers, investors, until you start to establish yourself as a specialist. Now, when I'm doing this in the past, as I've done it in the past so many times, I'll point to obvious examples like Alexander Shannara, and now we've got hell, Morgan and Morgan's like kicking Alexander Shannara's ass. But these guys focus on one particular aspect or facet of the legal profession, the law that they focus on is personal injury, accident and personal injury law. Okay. And so you'll see some lawyers even fine tune it down from that. Hey, you've been hit by a big truck. Call me if you've been hit by a big truck. Alexander Shannara's is motorcycles. Hey, you've been in a motorcycle wreck? Call me. So, what is your hyper focus in the marketplace that you're going to go deep on the research, previewing homes, studying the market data, creating content around all of that, doing open houses in this market segment spot, going to eat and to shop and, just trying to make new friends and develop new relationships and, go hang out with people in this area. So I had a meeting with a potential new agent, who's not in the business right now, but it's interested in getting his real estate license. And this was the first conversation we had together was, hey, if you got into real estate, where do you think you would focus? Like, what would you want to focus on? Okay. And he already knew this guy's not in real estate, but he's in the corporate world, wants to get into real estate, and has already has no real estate coach, no mentor, no nothing, has just from a practical business mindset, has already given this thought and already decided if, in fact, he gets his real estate license, this is the avenue that he's going to explore first, and that's luxury homes. Okay. So his wife is in the corporate world and she is surrounded by people of wealth and prominence. And they go to a lot of functions and he talks to a lot of people at these functions. And that's who he's going to focus on. So he said, I was like, well, great. What do you think your first step will be? He's like, well, I'm going to go out and join some country club, like a country club, and get real social with people real fast and play golf and do all the things around that. That's something I've heard every single top real estate coach across the country say at one point or another if they're talking about somebody that wants to break into luxury. It's like if you want to break into luxury, you go hang out where they hang out. You go to country clubs, you go to auctions, philanthropy is huge. You weasel your way into every dinner party you can. Maybe you crash some weddings or some funerals. I don't know. That's kind of a joke. Just want to see if you're paying attention. But you see where I'm going with this. So, does anybody on this freaking call besides me know what they're specializing in? And you can see Blake Ray turned his gosh damn camera off. Oh, here he comes.
Well, while you were talking, I was making some notes what possibly I can specialize in because, I'm pretty new. And by the way, it was my first closing this Friday. So, congratulations to me. Um, as you said, you want to be something passionate about. And I think that's a very correct statement because you really want to be able to produce the value and also enjoy the moment. So I think was my background in not really design, but in photography and all the good stuff and work with the Photoshop. I think that what I can do, and I just came up with this while you were talking, to look into the kind of distressed properties and showcase them what potential it has. For example, I can use AI to, change the walls and, show what the house can be versus to what the listing shows. So I think it can attract investors and buyers as well. So I think with my ability to work with, software like Photoshop and different kind of designing software, it can be really something standing out from everyone else, people doing it over here. So I think I might want to try to work in this direction.
Okay, so let me see. I need to see if I understand you. So basically, are you saying like you want your specialization to be like geared toward investors?
Yes and no. It also can be just a regular buyer because sometimes you come into the house, which, it's got great bones in a perfect location, but you see that it's been updated 20 years ago, right? And some people, like my husband, he's not visionary. Like he cannot see what it can be, right? So it was the same when we were buying a house a couple of years ago. We walked in and you cannot really, like, you don't know what the potential is, but I sit down and I went room by room, changed the colors and the furniture. I basically renovated it online and showed it to him. And I sold our house to my husband and say, hey, here's the potential. That's what it can look like. That's what we need to invest in there, approximately, right? And he was like, okay, I can see that. You know what I mean? So I can probably do the same thing with the houses that are some people will overlook just because they need a little bit, paint and stuff, but also probably going to be catered to investors as well.
So it sounds like maybe a listing specialist is what you're talking about, like how, but a listing specialist with an emphasis on how to guide people on how to stage a product, to stage a home to sell. So,
No,
no?
no. It's when you are walking in already existing listing on the market and you can show the potential of this listing.
Okay. So here's what I'm gonna tell you is we got to pivot from that. You got to go back to the drawing board. It's too complicated, it's too cumbersome, and it is not going to send a direct enough message. Well, let me give you an example where I thought you might be going with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, another specialization that I've encouraged real estate agents to adopt, and this is just an option I've thrown out there that I thought was very, very good, and that very few real estate agents are doing. You would have to either have an affinity for numbers, or you would have to be, I think, like super interested in the economics of real estate. But really, this is becoming a wealth advisor. So teaching people, guiding people how to build wealth through real estate. Here's an example. If I was doing some content around this would be an example, right? That I would find a new construction community that is in its early phases. So it's in like phase one, and there's going to be like two or three, four more phases, whatever it is. And what I would do is, so like D.R. Horton, for example, builds down a street. Okay, so they go one street at a time. They develop it all the way to the cul-de-sac, and that's how they sell homes. They're building and selling homes until they get to the end of the street, and then they start on a new street. So sometimes there's a home kind of in the middle of that street that's not sold, and they're continuing to finish homes further down the street. And D.R. Horton will put a $10,000 price reduction on that property, and maybe even some kind of crazy interest rate. And if I find a house like that, like I found a house like that 2 weeks ago for a buyer, they decide not to pull the trigger on it because they're not thinking about enough about being or building wealth through real estate. But this was a home they could have bought with $10,000 in immediate equity. Once the exact same house, about four houses down, sold. It's the exact same floor plan. So $10,000 off. D.R. Horton's giving them $15,000 to use towards closing costs, buy down the rate. Crazy. Okay. So that's an example of a house that a person can buy or an investor can buy. So it can be their primary residence. They can live in it for a few years and sell it for a huge profit and use that money to go on to buy their next house, and then they're just leveling up every time they do this, right? And so maybe they've got enough cash when they're going to buy that next home that they've got some money to do some rehab. And so the next option we go to is a house that is in a great area but needs, $40,000 worth of work, and now we've got the money to put into it. That would be a huge example of something that would be really, really powerful. But you would put out graphics about this saying, hey, you can buy this for this. The builder's going to give you this. You can use this part of that 15,000 towards closing costs, which is going to give you this left over to buy down the rate. I'm going to encourage you to put not only 20, but 25% down because that's going to drastically decrease the monthly payment, which is going to give you a better opportunity to cash flow if you're going to put a renter in there. All right. This is a like the most guaranteed, fastest equity building opportunity out there. It's one of the best. But people don't understand or have time to calculate the numbers, much less find deals. And so you find deals like that for people and you advertise, here's the renovation cost, here's, what you can buy it for, here's what you're going to have to put in it, and here's the estimated profit that you can sell it for.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about. Find distressed property, showcase what do you need to invest it and what is can be in the market down the road.
So what you could do is what I would do, all right, is and listen, I just want to say this real quick, is that you may get into this and go, oh, I can't this
Yeah.
okay. But so we may have to stick our toes in a couple different ponds to see kind of what works, right? But I would find there's probably a ton of investment groups in the Huntsville area. I would start
Yeah,
finding
I've
those.
been joining them.
Yeah, join and go meet people, go talk to people, find out who are the realtors that are investing the most or doing the most investment deals, working with the most investors, doing the most flips, and get to know them. A lot of those agents are not going to do a lot of marketing. And so you can say, listen, I've got this idea of how we can partner. You have the listing, I don't. Okay. I want to help you find a buyer for your listing. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to do all this great content and I'm going to show people by the numbers what it's going to take to buy and hold. Maybe it's a long-term rental, maybe it's a short-term
Yeah.
rental, maybe it's just a fix and flip. So you'd have all these different types of properties that you're focused on advertising, and really there are. When I'm looking at this specialization process on how to arrive at it, I'm looking at how can where are there opportunities in the marketplace for me to help people make money, save money, or solve a problem. And so you are essentially covering with that specialization, you're covering all three of those bases.
All three. Yeah.
Because the problem they have is that, Realtor NAR put out a study, did some research, and they found that like across the nation on average, people are sitting on like 60 to $80,000 in equity. Well, they're not doing anything with it and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what they can do with it. So
Yeah.
you start putting out content to educate people on that and it's going to be a big win. Then you're going to have people reaching, and then you could put out a piece of content like, hey, who's looking for a great real estate investment? Who's looking to, and you could say, as you go along, you can put out stats saying, hey, my buyer bought this 2 years ago and sold it and made a $70,000 profit. Who needs to make $70,000 in 2 years and compare that to what return they're getting off of a money market account or an IRA or
Yeah.
something like that. Okay. So the other key here is you would want to stick with it for like 6 months or so. All right. Now, if you have any inclination in the beginning, because how you'll have the right, I think, target specialization, like you're how you're going down the right road is that when you get up in the morning, you are ready to get up in the morning and go to work. Like you're excited to go to work. You're like, wow, what deal can I find today? How can I help somebody make a ton of money in the real estate market? How can I help somebody grow wealth through real estate? And that just fires you up. Okay. If it doesn't, you need to bounce early and pivot to something else.
Yeah.
Now, if you feel that fire, if you can feel it, then you're on the right track. Okay. Now, I am continuing, like you'll see me focus on lake, but I've got all these other things I'm doing to pay the bills until I can just focus 100% on lake properties, until I can refer everything out that's not on the lake. I'm still gonna sell. You're still gonna see me putting out content that's non-lakefront.
Mm-hmm.
Predominantly, I want people to see me as a lake agent. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I had lunch with one of our neighbors, Greg Mahaley, who's in the window business, and was just talking to him. I was like, hey, what do you see? Like from do you watch my content? It's like the first question I asked him. He's like, yeah. I was like, well, what do you see? Like based on what you see from my content, what would you think I'm focused on as a real estate agent? He goes, man, only thing I see is lake stuff. Okay. So that works. So you figure out what you want to do, you make a decision, you start putting out very consistent content in that regard. I would say 80% of the content you're putting out on whatever social media channels you're on is related to this specialization. And then you're committed to 6 months. You know, we had KD on here and he was talking about all KD does. I would say KD, his specialization is just content, it's
Mhm.
consistent content. He had to give it 6 months. He knew from his mentors, like, listen, I had to do it for at least 6 months before I saw anything from it.
Yeah.
So you'll see, I think probably by month 2 or 3, even, you will start to get some Facebook messages or text messages from people going, hey, I think, aren't you in like, don't you focus on like investments? I've got like this money I just inherited. I need to do something with it. You're going to start to get these little calls and go, oh, people are noticing what I'm doing. Okay. So that's the key, right?
Yeah.
So once you have that, then it's like, all right, what do I need to do to perpetuate this identity, to foster it, to establish it, to build it, and to keep building it on the notoriety of this specialization. So, like one goal I have is every single week I need to put new lake content out there. I need to have what I just call it a lake project. All right, and so my assistant and I, he's like, "What's our lake project for this week? What are we working on for this week?" All right, so I've got one big lake project that I work on, and from that I usually get a bunch of little things that I can make reels and stories and things out of. And then the other thing I'm focused on, which I put in the chat, is how many conversations that I'm having every week. How many appointments am I setting from those conversations? How many appointments am I going on? And how many new pendings, new offers, new contracts does that yield? All right. And so what that helps me do is number one, stay accountable to what really matters, which is conversations. It's all about conversations and relationships that those conversations foster, nurture, maintain over a long period of time. So if I look at my numbers, I say, well, man, I did really well in my conversations this week. 57 conversations. I set 4 appointments. I went on 3, but that didn't result in any offers, no new contracts. So I need to go on some more appointments this week. Like I got to get it together and get some things going. Right. So it's really important for you to have things that you're committed to and that you are tracking and measuring those commitments to just stay focused, stay accountable, and stay on track. So I would say this, and he said, like, I know that you are committed to putting out content on the regular. You start shifting that to 80%, shift 80% of that to one segment of the marketplace, one specialization where you want to be known for the agent to call in the Huntsville, Madison area in North Alabama, whatever the territory is, that knows where to find a deal and not only knows how to find a deal, but how to get it prepared to sell, like flip really fast, rent really fast, or bring in a ton of vacation, rental income. So you'll see this too. Like people, you build this celebrity around this. And this would be like take it, find investors and just go, hey, let me take you to lunch. Let me take you to coffee. I just want to pick your brain and ask them, like, what are you looking for in a real estate agent? What kind of knowledge are you looking for in the real estate agent? Like, this real estate agent you've been working with for so long, like, or your favorite real estate agent. Here's the one thing about investors, they work with a ton of real estate agents. So you have an opportunity to get in there and gain market share very, very quickly because they want to work with the hustlers. So they want to work with somebody who's super driven. But yeah, so that's the thing. Just, immerse yourself in all these events. And then the other thing that's going to happen is you are going to get in a rhythm and you're going to have your schedule really packed with, educational opportunities, mentorship opportunities, networking opportunities, content opportunities, contract opportunities, closing opportunities, and you're not going to have any dead space to go, gosh, I know I need to be doing something productive today, but I just don't know what. All that is going to go out the window. So you're going to be really, really focused on what you need to be doing. All right. Anybody else got anything? I think this is the most important thing.
Hmm.
What are you known for? If you don't have a reputation in the marketplace as being an expert in a community, because like you could seriously just you could find a subdivision in Madison or Huntsville somewhere that's just like got thousands of homes, tons of amenities, and that could be your bread and butter. You could make an actual subdivision your specialization. So it could be a type condos, foreclosures. I mean, there's so many things, but the key is finding something that you really, really love so it doesn't feel like work. And you're just going a mile, an inch wide and a mile deep. Like you're learning everything you can about it. And you're, creating content around everything that you're learning. You're educating the public on all things investments. So I would be able at some like in 3 months I could get you on this call and go, all right, Anissa, where is the hottest place in Madison County to invest in real estate right now? Like, where can I get the greatest return on a flip? Where are the highest rents? Where are the highest opportunities for vacation rental income? And you would be able to tell me about these areas and really, ideally, a specific property or two that you have in mind. That's how well you know these areas. That's how well you know your specialization. That's how well you've mastered your craft. And then what happens is that business starts to come to you. People start tagging you in Facebook posts. Like, man, I've got all this equity in my home, or we're looking to buy another fix and flip, or we want to expand our long-term rental business into Huntsville. Who should we connect with? And people start tagging you. That's when you know that
There works.
it's starting to work. So, what we need is for you to trust me on this, for you to give it a lot of thought, for you to start this week getting out there and developing this and seeing, where it goes and what
Yeah.
comes from it and all these different things. Find an agent that just crushes it with investments that doesn't have time to do the marketing. Go, hey,
Hmm.
here's my plan. Give them a proposal. So it's not going to
Hmm.
cost you anything. I'm just working for a commission that's offered on the other end. So as long
Yeah.
as sellers are offered a commission, bam, here's what I can do for you and get rolling.
I like that.
All right. Let's see what we're at time wise. 37 minutes. I think this is a good stopping point. And if nobody else has anything to add, anybody? All right. I'll see y'all next week. Please remember to invite friends. Doesn't matter what brokers they're from, what part of the country they're in. The more people we can hear from, like if we got somebody on here, think about how powerful it would be if we got somebody on here that said, yeah, like 2 years ago, I got that same advice on developing a specialization and actually did it, stuck with it for 6 months, and here's, what I've got to show for it. And it's a powerful message that we could all not only learn from, but help us keep going. Because I'm telling you, you get 3 months into this, Anissa, and you don't have hardly any results to show from it. You're going to need a boost. You're going to need a kick in the pants. Like I had a person, and I'll end on this, I promise. I had a person that I'm trying to really hard. I've been working really hard to develop this relationship with this person on the lake who is a person of prominence and knows a lot of people, could really, really help me establish myself on the lake. And he just reached out to me the other day, sent me a private message and said, hey, I really, maybe it was a public message and maybe I DM'd him. I can't remember, but he messaged me in one way or the other and just said, hey, I love what you're doing on the lake. I like following you. I'm a big fan. Keep up the good work. And I wrote back privately and said, I really needed to hear that today because I've been putting in a lot of time and effort into the lake. And I just really feel like I just needed that. I just needed it because I'm just, I'm fighting. I'm not seeing much from it yet, but I'm fighting. And that really helps me stay in the fight, was really the gist of it. So,
I mean, I have an example from my other business, but it's not really related to real estate, but definitely. I mean, when I was starting photography business, you start with any genre, and then I decided to focus on the weddings only. And 5 years later, I don't do any marketing anymore. I have leads coming into my box all the time because I stuck with it for a year. I was working towards one genre. I niche my photography business to one thing. And now, I just work all the word of mouth and vendors and stuff like that selling me leads. So
So let's think
pretty
about this real quick.
amazing.
You tell me, Anissa, said this is true or false. All right, so you establish yourself as a wedding photographer. Now people
Yeah.
know like where, like what your specialization is, what you are the best at, and what you really like if they're going to refer you out to people, now they know what to refer you for and all that stuff. But I'm sure you've done a wedding, a photo shoot at a wedding or whatever, and people you've met other people at the wedding go, well, hey, do you do this? Do you do like family portraits? Do you do this? Do you do
Oh
that?
yeah.
So this is the thing, though. This is a very important thing. We got to end on this. Is that real estate agents do this like they shy away from a specialization because they think it's going to pigeonhole them.
Yeah.
What it actually does is like I met a guy over the weekend looking at a lake house who's like, "Hey, do you do any like where else do you sell real estate?" And he
Exactly.
gave me a couple other opportunities to chase. So it's
I
super
agree with
powerful.
you 100%. It's not going to close opportunity for selling or buying something else. It's just going to expand it. But people are going to know you for exactly what you do. Like you do your lake houses, and it's amazing. Like I said, I mean, if I know someone looking for a lake house, I will be referring them to you because I'm like, oh, that's the only person I really know who's doing lake houses on the in common area. I'll be like, yeah, go to Jason. He knows everything about that. So
All
I
right.
agree with you.
Yeah. Proof's in the pudding. All right. See y'all next week. Call me if you need me in
Yes,
between.
sir.
Bye.